Okay. Hello, class. We're joined here by Tim O'Brien. Tim O'Brien is a veteran of business, accounting, and information technology, and he has over 30 years of experience. For the last several years, he has been specializing in web applications and data analysis for small and medium-sized businesses. He managed a staff of 100 as the director of Microsoft's Finance Information Technology Group. He's also a certified public accountant, and he served numerous mid-sized businesses in the Pacific Northwest during his tenure at Deloitte & Touche LLP and Solutions Consulting Group. Previously, he oversaw product design, development, and marketing as VP of Engineering and Product Management for Mirio Corporation. He also worked at Starwave, a subsidiary of the Walt Disney Company, as Director of Ad Engineering, where he managed the development team for ad engineering, site traffic reporting, and Salesforce automation. Tim has earned his Master's of Software Engineering at Seattle University and a BA in Accounting at the University of Washington. So welcome, Tim. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So for traditional predictive technology projects, what are the competencies you would look for in a project manager?
Well, first we have to be clear on what the role of a project manager is. I'm in Silicon Valley now, and I can tell you that it's just a title that goes along with a number of different roles. When people say project manager, they can mean someone who actually has the responsibility for shipping a product to market, leading the team and getting the product out the door, all the way down to maybe someone who only runs the PMO office. So it's a very term that almost has no meaning at all. But for purposes of our discussion, I'm going to stick with the definition of a person who actually ships the product and may or maybe not has positional authority over the team that they use to deliver that product. And what I would say is it's best to look at the problem of a couple of Venn diagrams. If you are a project manager who has the same skill level as all of the people you work with, the communication is going to be very good. You guys will know exactly what each other's thinking, exactly what ought to be done, but you might become kind of myopic, and that's probably not the best use. What you really want to have is some significant overlap as a project manager with your team so that you understand their world enough to be able to tell them how to get the work done, what the work needs to be, and when you need it delivered. And they understand you well enough because you talk the same language in order to execute on that. In addition, you need probably a high level of architecture understanding, because if you're the leader of this team, you have to know what the end product is going to look like, not just the bits and pieces that the team is building and making up. And I also think you need to have really good presentation skills so that you can not only talk or write well to the people who work for you in your food chain, but also people above you, and perhaps even board members and that sort of thing, and sometimes even customers. A couple of other skills I think you need. One is flexibility, because things change, especially if you're working in small technology companies. Mm-hmm. You might have someone that comes in and is willing to buy a product, and they need a feature real quick. So all of your best laid plans might be put aside in order to make that new deliverable deadline. And at the same time, you have to have vision. So flexibility, vision, ability to architect, presentation skills, and management are all skills I think you need as a good project manager.
Okay, so keeping that in mind, would there be anything different that you would look for in a project manager in the Agile environment?
Agile is a huge benefit to reducing risk on projects. And all of those same skills would still apply, and with the understanding that you probably need even more flexibility because things happen rapidly, and you have to be a very quick thinker in order to make things happen at that kind of pace. If you're having sprints that are somewhere between 2 and 6 weeks long, you have to have an understanding of what the vision is going to be by chopping that work up into very small things so that you can achieve tight time frames with a minimum viable product every sprint. So all the same features with more stress on flexibility and vision.
Right. So what advice would you give someone who's maybe transitioning from a traditional environment to an agile environment?
Well, the first thing you have to do is understand what agile is. A lot of people think it just means waterfall, just in more tight loops. And that's not the case at all. You really do need to deliver something meaningful. And I think you have to be more diligent about making sure that people only work on that work and that you're careful about shipping it on time. If the sprint lasts 4 weeks, it's got to last 4 weeks every time. And you ship what's good at the end of that 4 weeks. And then you stop, do a retrospective, and figure out how to go forward. So being more draconian about the rules is really important in Agile, making sure you stick with the Agile methodology. I've seen too many people who come from a traditional waterfall model, and what they do is they make the sprints last ever longer and longer until they get what's supposed to be done in that sprint done. And maybe you're into 2 and 3 months now. That's not Agile anymore. That's just a shorter bit of waterfall methodology.
Right. Exactly. That's great.
So I think draconian management style is really appropriate.
Right. Sticking with the process.
That's right.
What do you think the difference is between a project manager and a project leader?
Positional authority.
Okay.
A project manager typically is responsible for the people on that team. They're going to be giving them feedback. They're going to be criticizing, perhaps doing performance reviews and that sort of thing. They're also responsible for shipping the product out the door. A product leader a lot of times is perhaps someone hired to actually help with the technology, who has more expertise and experience in these kinds of things. And they're the person that people look up to in order to get the thing done. But they wouldn't have the positional authority.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to skip over to program or portfolio management. Do you think somebody who's interested in doing something like program or portfolio management, should they start out in project management first? Or?
Absolutely.
Yes.
I absolutely agree with you. I don't think you can become a portfolio manager until you understand all of the difficulties in or project management. Project management leads to program management, which leads to portfolio. Until you become good at those lower level things, you can't move up. You just wouldn't understand it.
Right, right. So should someone interested in a career in project, program, or portfolio management be competent with both agile and traditional methodologies? I
think so. A lot of it depends on the industry. If you're working for a small startup in Silicon Valley or in the Seattle, South Lake Union area, you certainly are going to be doing agile. That's almost what everybody's using anymore. But if you start working for larger projects where you are being paid by contract for a state government, a federal government, or a large corporation, those projects are going to, by definition, require some kind of waterfall in order to get paid by phases. So if you want to be one of those guys that has a big tool belt, you'll have to make sure that you know how to do both agile and classic project management capability or waterfall.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for joining us, Tim.
You betcha.